it's predictable that we will have unrest, no matter what the verdict is.
A retired deputy chief with the Unified Police Department here in Utah says police do need to be prepared in the coming days.
Fox 13's Sydney Glenn spoke with Salt Lake City Police to see how they are getting ready for any possible civil unrest as the country waits to find out Derek Chauvin's fate. Sydney?
Well, you can see there's already barricades up here at the Salt Lake City Police headquarters. Those went up on Friday when we saw two peaceful protests. Salt Lake City Police say freedom of speech is so important, and those demonstrations are what helps move our country forward. But they say it's important those are done lawfully. The world is waiting to hear Derek Chauvin's fate.
You have to psychologically prepare yourself for any of it.
Darlene McDonald is a well-known activist here in Utah. She says she's waiting on pins and needles to hear this verdict.
Either way, I think there's going to be protests.
Last year on May 30th, protests turned to riots in Salt Lake City in support of George Floyd and others while fighting against police brutality. Former UHP Deputy Chief of Police says police weren't as prepared as they may have thought.
The response was underwhelming, and as a result, we lost a lot of property.
Sergeant Keith Horrocks with the Salt Lake City Police Department says they were prepared but surprised by some of what happened. They are always watching and learned from last year.
We have intel analysts that are always looking at the feel of things and trying to decide if there's going to be a potential for problems.
He said time and time again, we must remember freedom of speech is so important.
Demonstrations are a good thing. They're what move our communities forward. They make us change in places that we need to change.
But when things turn violent, McDonald says the message is lost.
That is how you are heard. That is how people see what you're actually fighting for. And you don't shift the narrative from what you're fighting for to let it become about the rioting.
It's all about the line, Chris Bertram says, and police have to know what that is.
When those become violent, when those become, violations of law, that officers need to know clearly what their rules of engagement are, that they planned appropriately, and that they respond appropriately.
Now all anyone can do is wait for the jury to come back and see how people respond.
There is no activist group that is really on the grounds of peaceful protesting that would advocate violence.
Last summer, there was hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage done to our city, and several people were charged in connection to that riot. Live in Salt Lake City, Sydney Glenn, Fox 13 News.